Hi everyone, Jessica here from Paper Ink Stamp and welcome back to my channel. So in today's video we're going to be looking at issue 97 of Creative Stamping magazine. So let's take a quick look at what comes included with this month's issue. So the theme of this is called Beneath the Waves. So here we have a 5x5 inch embossing folder. So you can see that design on the front. So we've got some really beautiful waves here and we're going to be able to create some really cool backgrounds with this using lots of different techniques. Then, as always, we've got an A4 stamp set. So again, this is called Beneath the Waves. We've got all of these images as we normally do. Lots of sentiments in here, lots of scene building images. And we've got this really big stamp here with the mermaid sat on a rock. Then we have these two large stamps here by Stampendous. We've got a really lovely octopus and then just a sort of cluster of jellyfish there. So again, some really great underwater themed scene building stamps. So let's take a quick look at the inspiration in the magazine itself. So here we've got an ocean of colour. So you can see we've got a shaker card here, coloured in really beautifully, and you've got those lovely sequins to create an underwater look. We've got using the octopus. We've got this really lovely, I love how the octopus has been coloured in here, really different kind of colours, but it helps it to kind of stand out nicely. Again, then different sized cards as well. So we've got more of a slimline size card here, and then we've got more of a kind of mixed media style here. So they've used a gel plate for the background, which I think is quite cool, just to create something a little bit different. Then we've got Making Waves, so again a variety of different kinds of cards. So for this one they've used that embossing folder and they've actually cut small sections to be able to kind of hide little bits of the stamped image behind it. So instead of sort of trimming it down, it actually looks like, you know, it's coming out of the water. That is really lovely. We've got different kind of apertures here, different sizes and different kind of shapes coming together, and then using that embossing folder in sort of lots of different ways. So in the next issue, this is called Fruity Fun. So we've got lots of different stamps in here, perfect for the summer. We've also got a small section here from Hunky Dory for the love of stamps. So you've got some fruit in here with different faces you can stamp, and then lots of different sort of pun sentiments to go with that. Again, we've got different sentiments in here. We've got just fruit on its own, jars, glasses, so perfect for summer. And this also comes with a bumper pack of paper, which is fabulous because then it's going to match perfectly into that. So we're really excited to see what we can create with that set, and this issue goes on sale on the 22nd of July. But for now, let's get into creating our card for today's video. Okay, so we've got a few different elements that we're going to do to bring our card together. So this is going to be a little bit of a more involved style card, but I think it's going to come out really nicely. So I'm going to be making quite a big card today, so I'm going to be making a 5x7, and I plan to kind of fill as much of that as possible. So the idea I have got is to create sort of an aperture style card and just create a scene behind it. So what I'm going to use my embossing folder for, first of all, is going to be my very background, if you like. So I've just cut down just a piece of regular cardstock here. So this is going to fit just within our embossing folder. But what I'm actually going to do is add some Distress Oxide to the inside of my embossing folder. So I've got two colours of Distress Oxide. I have got Broken China and Tumbled Glass. And what I'm going to do is I'm simply just going to add my ink directly to the embossing folder. Now it's going to be slightly hard to see because obviously our design on the front showing you kind of what it's going to be like is sort of almost the same colour. So we're going to add our Tumbled Glass there, and then our Broken China. Just going to kind of add this to the bottom. So again, I'm not looking for anything kind of too perfect here. Okay, so let's run this through our embossing folder and then through our die cutting machine. Okay, so we've run that through. So if we just open it up, you can see that we've added that colour to the background, and then we've got our design is white on top. So I think that looks really beautiful. I'm not bothered that it's kind of splotchy or anything like that. I think that really kind of adds some really nice depth to those waves. So I think that is beautiful. Okay, so I'm just going to leave that to one side just for when we're ready to sort of assemble our card together. So now I'm going to work on the front panel to my card. So I've got a piece of my really good watercolour cardstock here, but I want to just try this technique to begin with before actually using it on my good paper. So I've just taken a piece of cardstock that I had in the bin just to sort of practice this and really sort of see how this comes out. So I'm going to bring back my embossing folder. And once again, I'm going to add some colour just to the top of this. Just like so. Then I'm going to take my brayer again, and what I'm going to do, instead of going over it over and over again, I'm literally just going to go down it until I've done a full roll. And what that's going to do is actually pick up our design from the embossing folder onto our roller. So it hasn't sort of picked up the whole you know, roll of it, but I plan to kind of go over this a few times. So all I'm going to do then is let's just start where the design isn't. I'm just going to pop that down on my paper, and I'm just going to roll that down. And you can see then how it's actually rolled out the design of our embossing folder. So I'm just going to try that again and see if I can get a full roll's worth on here. Okay, I think that should be good. Then we're just going to roll it down our card just like that. So before I start, what I'm actually going to do is add a little bit of our tumbled glass onto this as well, just to kind of have something a little bit lighter. And what I'm planning to do with my main front panel is I'm going to have maybe kind of 2 stripes coming down. So let's bring in our roller again. So let's pop this on our folder, and I'm going to get a roll all the way around. And what I'm actually going to do is start at the bottom and work my way up. That means I want to have a darker colour at the bottom and lighter at the top. So you can see that really just gives you kind of a hint of that colour there. So let's go down the other side. So let's just rotate this and see if I can get this very edge of that. So I'm going to add another layer. So I'm going to go back in with our broken china, just to kind of get a few darker elements in there. Okay, so let's come back in with our embossing folder. Okay, and I think I'm just going to go kind of straight up the top. So that's our background that we've created using an embossing folder, some Distress Oxide and a brayer. And I think that's come out really nicely. I wasn't looking for anything kind of too perfect, and I think this has come out better than what I kind of imagined in my head. So now for the next stage of creating our front panel. So like I said, I want to create an aperture. So I've got some circle dies here, and what I want to do is create an aperture in this card here, and then I've picked out a piece of Arctic Blue from the Craft Perfect range, and what I'm going to do is create another smaller piece to go behind this with another aperture. So hopefully this is going to make sense, but I need to cut this aperture piece first. So I'm just going to grab a little bit of low tack washi tape, because this is the front of our card. I don't kind of want to wreck our background. So I want to have it kind of near the top here. So I'm happy with that. And then I'm going to sort of more add my tape to this circle inside piece. And of course, what we cut out of here, of course, you can use then on another project. So I'm going to run this through my die cutting machine. So I've run this through my die cutting machine, so I can now take this center piece out. And as I said, this circle piece here, absolutely do not throw this away. You can use this on another project. And you've got then that really cool waves of background. You could add so much to that. So I'm going to pop that to one side. So now I'm going to go 2 sizes down in our nesting circles, because I do want you to be able to see this colour underneath, because we're going to kind of build our image up. So I don't need this to be a full piece here, but I am going to trim it down So I have my blue piece of cardstock here, so I'm going to go with the weave pattern up, and then all I'm going to do is just pop that behind there, and then I'm just going to see exactly where I want my die to be. So I'm going to do it just there, and then again I'm going to just hold my die down with some washi tape, and then I'm going to run this through my die cutting machine. So here we have our next piece, so I can take the inside out of that as well. We've created a second aperture, and again we can keep that piece of cardstock. So you can see we have got our aperture in here from our front panel. We've then got a nice aperture from the Arctic Blue cardstock, and what we're going to be able to do is create a really beautiful scene. So if we just kind of bring back then our embossed background, so I am going to trim this down as well, but just so we can kind of see how this is going to look. So that piece is then just going to sit in there. So the background kind of goes with what we've created here on the front of our card, which I do really love. But I don't know how much of this you're going to see by the time we've added all of our elements to it. But now we can trim down this piece. So what I'm actually going to do is simply die cut using the biggest circle here, just so I know then that it is going to fit. Okay, so now we have this circle piece. We can kind of place this where we want it to be, place our next piece, and that's roughly how our card is going to look. So this is still quite light. I might, again, when I've got some of my images, either I might colour those in quite dark, or I might just add a little bit of depth of colour into this, maybe in that background, just adding some sort of darker shades in there. But for now I'm happy with how this is looking. I'm not going to stick any of this down because I do need to stamp my images and kind of build up my scenes. So now I want to look at stamping my images. So I've got my stamping platform out just so I can do this a few at a time. So I know I want to add a bunch of these to create our scene. So I definitely want our mermaid. So let's pop her down. Let's go in with the fish. Let's kind of go in with this coral. So I might end up stamping maybe another one of those. Let's go in with a few of these sort of coral pieces here and different shells and things. Let's pop those on. Got a shell just there. Let's add a seahorse. We might not end up using all of these, but I'd rather have them stamped out just in case. So I'm thinking either the turtle or I think our octopus is going to take up a lot of space. So I think I will take the turtle as well. So I'm going to use my Memento Tuxedo Black. And then the benefit of using the stamping platform, of course, is that we can restamp this because I did miss at the top of our mermaid's head. So let's just stamp that, and then I can restamp any images that I think need it. So just going to add a little more ink to that starfish there. And then that is perfect. So now we've got our images all stamped out, we can go ahead and start colouring these in. So I'm not going to sort of do too much to these, and I think I'm actually going to use my tri-blend markers just for kind of ease of this. I will zoom in, I'll play some music just while we go through that colouring process. So here we have all of our images. You've seen there that I just did some super quick and easy fussy cutting sort of around these images. So now what we need to do is bring back all of our elements and kind of work out how we're going to build up this scene. So let's just pop these pieces back together. And what I'm going to do just really simply is I'm just going to add a little piece of washi tape just to hold these in place. Okay, so the idea I kind of had was to kind of build these up, have some of them kind of coming out. So we're going to have kind of different pieces coming out of the different pieces of aperture. Hopefully that kind of makes sense. So let's add that one there. And what I did want to do was have, let's just take our fish out. So what I wanted to have was our mermaid kind of sitting out. So all I'm going to do is just grab a smaller pair of scissors, and I'm actually just going to cut right along her fin or her tail, whatever it's called, and then hopefully, there you go. So I just want that. So if we have her kind of sat like that, so she's kind of in and she's a little bit out as well, so let's do the same sort of with her hair. So she's going to be sat just like that. So then we do have again these sort of different elements and pieces that we can kind of just tuck in all around. So I think I'm going to have our seahorse be again sort of outside the card. So that's going to be kind of our rough placement. It may sort of change a little bit kind of as we build it up. I have got a couple of images left, but what I think I am going to do is just add an extra little bit of colour to this, something a little bit darker, just to help kind of bring it to life a little bit. And I think I'm going to add that onto our front page. So I'm just going to take all of these elements back out. So again, I've got sort of a rough idea of where I want them to go. So I'm going to take my broken china, because that was the ink that I used. I'm just going to take a blending brush, and I'm really simply just going to add some extra colour just around our aperture here. And that's just going to help kind of highlight it a little bit more. And just give it a little bit of interest and make it just kind of stand out a little bit more. So I think I might just add just a little bit, you know, just around the edges. So we kind of getting that tone on tone now, because we are just doing a little bit of blending in that same colour. But I still want to be able to kind of see the white of that card. So I did say that I used my good watercolour cardstock for this, so I was intending to kind of add some water, but as I didn't do that in the end, I could have just used regular cardstock, but this is a nice sort of card to blend onto. But what we can do, since it is watercolour cardstock, is we could literally just sort of spritz this. So I'm just going to add some water just into my hand. Just going to grab a paper towel. And we can lift that back up again. Okay, so now I want to begin to assemble my card. So I've got my card base here. So like I said at the beginning, we're creating a 7x5 inch card. But the first thing we want to do is sort of get our apertures together. So all I'm going to do is, let's just take off that bit of washi tape. I'm going to take my tape runner. I'm literally just going to add adhesive. So I've added my adhesive all the way around my aperture here. I'm going to take our embossed background, and so I really want to get this sort of extra little bit of detail in here, and I think I'm going to have it at the top because that bit is going to be covered by our mermaid. So let's just frame kind of what we want to have framed there. But I'm not going to sort of press down kind of too hard on this. So if I bring back my panel, anything that I want to have kind of right behind that piece, I'm going to just tuck in now. So let's just lift it a little there. So we're going to have that just tucked in just there. And I think I had one of these sort of just kind of in just up there. And I'm just going to let these come forward. It just adds a nice little bit of dimension. So what I'm going to do next is I'm actually going to cover my front panel with some Big Mama foam tape. This is then just going to create a nice kind of step between our apertures. Okay, so now I've got the whole of my background covered in foam tape, so I can take some of this off. I've tried to cover all areas so I can have as stable, or I can have it as stable as possible. So before I actually take all of the sort of foam pieces off, so let's take off these sides. So before I stick this down, what I want to do is add in my images. That way then they can stick to that foam adhesive. So I'm just carefully going to pop in exactly where I want my mermaid. And you can see then that's just sticking onto any foam adhesive we have got back there. So our turtle is slightly coming off. So that one should be okay. Let's add in our seahorse just kind of behind the tail there. So again, that's stuck to our adhesive. Pop a C-shot in there. Okay, so now I'm going to add this onto our aperture. So let's just place this so I don't want to press too hard. I don't want it to stick to my mat. And then we've got space then just to be adding in our other elements. So now we're just going to peel off the rest of these foam backs and we can actually add this to our card panel. So we've already done the sides and that. So this isn't going to have a white border. Normally I cut this down just to have a small border, but this one I've decided just to kind of do the full size. And then we've just got a tiny, tiny bit of dimension in there. So what I'm going to do is add some adhesive to the tail here. So I'm just going to add just a small amount of my tape runner. Okay, so I've actually decided to add the fish in, and it's going to be coming kind of off the side a little bit. So I'm just going to grab 2 small pieces of our Big Mama foam. We're going to have one for our little fish, and then I'm just going to pop one behind our mermaid, just to give her dimension, but I don't want her kind of floating off the page too much. So let's just tuck our fish in, kind of just there. So I've just added the sea turtle and our starfish onto the inside of the card. Obviously, we've coloured those in, so we do want to make use of those. So that is the front of our card, all of our images on. So what we've got left to do now is to add a sentiment. Okay, so the sentiment I picked out was "Have a Special Day." Just because of the size more than anything. There were some really lovely sentiments in this pack, but just thinking kind of the size and how well it's going to go with the card itself. So I've gone with quite an easy one. So we're going to heat emboss this onto some black cardstock, of course with some white embossing powder. So let's just stamp that. Let's grab our white embossing powder. So I've got my heat embossed sentiment just here. I'm just gonna cut the point at a fun end. We're just going to add it to the top of our card here, so let's just cut as straight as we can, and we're just going to add that to the top. So let's just pop some tape adhesive on there. So that is our card finished for today's video. So just to remind you, this is using issue 97 of Creative Stamping magazine, and this was called Beneath the Waves. So we had that A4 stamp set and of course that 5x5 inch embossing folder, and we've managed to kind of use all elements for our card here. So we've created a double, what I would call a double aperture card, because we've got then the 2 aperture layer in the background. We've used that embossing folder to create the background. We used the brayer with that embossing folder again to create our front panel, which I'm definitely interested in trying again with some other embossing folders that I have. We've coloured and cut out then those images, added some of those Nouveau drops just to the top of it to finish it off, and I just think it makes a really great card together. And then we have used just a couple of our spare images just on the inside of our card as well, just to help sort of decorate the inside. So that is it for today's video. If you do like this card, then please give this video a thumbs up and leave me a comment down below. If you haven't subscribed to my channel already, please do so you don't miss out on any future videos. So that's it for today. Thanks very much for watching, and happy crafting.